These are the candidates who, in just a few minutes, will face each other in the last presidential debate before the November 19 elections. And to begin our analysis today, we receive our first guest of the evening, Martín Martinelli. He is PhD in social sciences, historian, and activist. Martín, thank you for joining us in Latin American Votes.
Hello, thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. So how do the candidates arrive to this last presidential debate 20 days after the first round that crowned Sergio Massa in the first place with 36% of the votes against Javier Milei, who came in second with just about 30% of the ballots? How do they come to this presidential debate?
I think Massa is stronger because it is beginning to be seen that Milei is the first. He's blurring the idea of it, and you see how impractical it is. People are coming down a little from the anger he has, despite, of course, the economic difficulties we are going through. Argentina is a country in which we are accustomed to different economic crises from which we have managed to get out, but which have left a high level of poverty. In the sense of inequality, it is similar to Latin America as a whole, the most unequal region of the planet. I think Massa reversed the initial election because the first was a vote based on anger, but support for Milei vindicates the darkest and most disastrous of our recent past. Videla, the dictatorship, Domingo Cavallo, Carlos Saúl Menem, and Mauricio Macri, and that is why he talks about dollarizing, privatizing, shrinking the state. These are formulas that have failed in many countries, and our case is no exception.
Martín, you have just mentioned some of the key topics that have been a part of Milei's campaign, and the economy is certainly one of the key points of this presidential campaign. Let's recall that not only Sergio Massa is the current Minister of Economy of Argentina, but also Javier Milei, an economist himself, has jumped to the political scene because of his ultra-liberal readings on the economy and television programs and social networks. What do you think are the key points we and the audience need to take into account to understand the economic debate today in Argentina?
In Argentina in particular, we must not forget that there are an estimated $400 billion owned by Argentines abroad, an exorbitant sum for the financial imbalances suffered in the country, and it clearly shows the existence of concentrated sectors benefiting from the ups and downs of the economies, or as in the last loan requested from the Fund Monetary International in 2018 in the Macri administration, which were mostly fled abroad, causing part of the actual crisis, the financial crisis. Presidents Lula and Fernandez have talked a lot about the possibility of promoting other currencies to the dollar. The other day, Lula announced that it was agreed to create a working group to study the adoption of a reference currency for trade between member states. There are several positions on this matter. I think it is an interesting proposal that can offer new opportunities for countries that use it. Some postulate that it's not possible. However, the euro is also a currency between several countries, only with territorial continuity, but their countries have economies and population of very diverse sizes, as could be the case in the BRICS Plus. Given this model, it could be used for transactions between member countries, and the possibility of new nations entering the group must also be considered. Without a doubt, it is a position that proposes greater sovereignty and decision-making power because it gives the impression that the BRICS Plus maintains a role of a greater equality among its participants, and That is why it differs from the G7 with the members like United States, UK, the United Kingdom, Italy, Germany, Canada, Japan, uh, and so, which is highly dominated by policies supported by the NATO, which after all, they are led by the United States, whose foreign policy is based on allies or intervention and bellicosity towards those considered enemies in different historical circumstances. I think the topic of economy is central in Argentina because the the crisis and the inflation and the prices of the product is very difficult to the population and the population, and this is a moment to elect a new way to take because the world is changing, the geopolitical, the political, and the economic system is in crisis, and beyond these issues, a more medium-term perspective is the broader use of the yuan in international exchanges or the implementation of a BRICS plus currency, which could initiate the de-dollarization patterns in some of the hegemonic uses of that currency, as well as encouraging the use of the other currencies in exchange and not having to obtain dollars, as the petrodollar pattern imposes. A necessary change is how the BRICS Plus countries and the others as well continue to drain surpluses to the G7 countries, as Michael Hudson suggests. That is something substantial prior to the use of a new currency. And the G7 countries, with the United States imposing, will resist both issues with pressure from different levels, as they will seek to maintain their order and rules. This has been seen in the number of economic sanctions they imposed, poses a form of hybrid war, and they may also be one of the impulses or an acceleration of the search for alternatives and greater distrust in the dollar as a reserve currency.
Martin, you were talking about some of the key issues in this debate, and because the debate is going to address both economy as one of the topics, also international relations as the other, you were talking about the global move towards de-dollarization, and one of Milei's proposals that has drawn the attention of Argentines and around the world is exactly the dollarization. He is proposing dollarization and the elimination of the central bank as ways of allegedly taming inflation. How would you explain this to our foreign viewers? What's important what do we mean when we're talking about dollarization in Argentina, and what consequences could it bring to the country?
For example, in the region, we have seen that during the mandate of former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro, the country left UNASUR. It will be something extremely negative for Argentina and the region. It is quite likely that he will propose not joining the BRICS Plus, although that would be a short-sighted view since Argentina traded before that with Brazil, China, and India among the main ones. He aligns himself behind what has been done by Bolsonaro or Trump, who have left international organizations. So if he were not to leave, he could try to boycott the group or Argentina's participations from within. In other words, he will waste the opportunity and potential even if he entered it. Despite this, there are global changes in which your country is logically inserted that cannot be undone, like those mentioned above. One observation is that powers play behind delay and the internationally supported by the Anglo-Saxon axis, uh, United States and United Kingdom, even more Israel, and hence its positions toward the dollar, demonstrating a supposed liberal interest, but that benefits those countries, the United States, England, and even Israel, such as manifests. Furthermore, the case of the Malvinas adds a geostrategic position due to its proximity to the other Iceland and the Antarctica, an area of global interest in which it seems willing to bow under those countries. It is likely that if Milei becomes president, this will lead to a series of resistance and mobilizations against him, because he is a third of the voters in the peso, and they passed the first election, but now comes the valid election, the balotaje. His alignment is into a single posture of submission to the English-Saxon axis on different planes, on different areas. This is seen in his speech about dollarizing the economy when the world seems to be going in the opposite direction, or in some way in trying to balance the weight of emerging countries in reflection of the real economy, of raw materials and manufacturing, and not from the representativeness of the currency that is supported by the petrodollar, the unilateral sanctions, and different types of pressure to exercise control from financed by the North American power, like we see now in the world, in the Middle East, when United States gets provoked and instill the war in different uh, places of the world, in Ukraine, in the Russia case, in Israel and Palestine cases, in the area of Sahel in Africa, and in the other side of the world, in China and Taiwan, because United States wants to fragmentation, wants to uh, provoke different levels of war, the hybrid war, the technological competition with China, and our country is in the middle of this push. China wants to Argentine take yuan to pay, for example, in the IMF, and this is a demonstration, a change of the entire world. Well, in this case, Milei is negative to Argentine, negative to the region, negative to the world system in general terms, because he is a fascist leader, like Bolsonaro, like Giorgia Meloni, like Donald Trump, and he derives the rights of the women, the rights of the people, the rights of the workers in Argentina, the rights of the education in different levels, university, schools, because he wants to privatization, and in Argentina the estatal is a very exploited, is a very well sophisticated system, and he is run against all.
It's clear what you were saying, Martin, about the dollarization bid that is carrying Javier Milei, how this really goes against the global move where the global south is getting stronger. Blocs like the BRICS that Argentina is supposed to be joining, has been approved to join this year, is really moving against this United States hegemony. And of course, the dollarization bid would go against this global trend. And also, let's move to some of the other topics that the candidates will be covering on tonight's debate, as we are closely following images from Buenos Aires, because the debate is just minutes away from starting. Martin, education and health are other issues that will be addressed tonight at the debate. And throughout this electoral year, the libertarians have spoken on many occasions of the need to privatize, you were just mentioning this, both the educational management and the health systems. Although in the last few weeks, Javier Milei, seeking to expand his electoral base, has tried to disassociate himself from those proposals that may lose him votes. The debate on privatization is not new in Argentina. It was very strong in the 90s. What do you think we should take into account to understand what these proposals imply? Can privatizations improve the access of the great majorities to health or education?
Yes, I think that Milei's election is a great setback in all rights for Argentines. Education and public health in Argentina are recognized through the world because they are pillars through which greater equity among the population can be achieved. I insist that a victory for Milei would be catastrophic, which would provoke many protests. Furthermore, he's an obvious pawn of Macri, of the United States Embassy, and that is why we will lose sovereignty. The right to study at the university and public school. They also pursue advances in women's rights, as happened in Brazil with Bolsonaro, or in the advance of the rights in Europe and the United States. I think the privatization is nefast and very, very worse to the people in Argentina because the economic crisis is affect all the population. Even the Milei election is the worst scenario.
Martin, what you were saying was very clear. I think it's really good to think about this in terms of sovereignty.